Hi everyone, Voxel guy here. No time to lose, I will show you my workflow to animate my Magicavoxel characters in Unity. To do so, I will use three free software, Magicavoxel, Blender and Unity. First thing first, I'm making a folder on my desktop. I will store everything in this folder. I am making a very simple model in Magicavoxel for this tutorial. I'm making a chicken. Okay. When I'm happy with my model, I separate all the parts I want to be moving in Magicavoxel. And I make sure my model is facing the red edge of the box, of the 3D box. My model must be facing the red edge. I can now export my model as OBJ. I click on the export button on the bottom right and save it as OBJ in my desktop folder. I open Blender and on a new scene I delete the default cube and import my OBJ model by clicking on File, Import, Wavefront OBJ. My OBJ model is on my desktop folder. I find it and import it. My Magicavoxel model is now in Blender, but as you can see my pivot point, the moving arrows, is bad. So I change it by placing my 3D cursor, the red and white side, on my model with a left click, and I use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl-Shift-Alt-C, then pivot to 3D point. My pivot point is now on my model. I can move my model to the center of the scene. Moving it. The next step is to separate the moving parts. So, to do so, I will use shortcut in this order. Tab to edit mode. A to be sure to deselect all. Z for transparency. B for box selection. I select all the points of my part. P and click on selection to separate. Then for all my parts, B for box selection, P for separate. B for box selection, P for separate. And the last one, B for box selection, P for separate. All the parts of my models are now separate. When all my parts are separated, I go back to Object Mode using Tab, and I remove the transparency using Z. Now I need to set all my parts' pivot points in the right place. To do so, I select a part by right-clicking on it. I place the 3D cursor where I want my pivot point to be with left click, and I reuse the keyboard shortcut Ctrl-Shift-Alt-C, pivot to 3D points. I reset all pivot points of all my parts. I right-click to select a part, left-click to place the 3D cursor on it, and Ctrl-Shift-Alt-C, pivot to 3D point. Right-click, left-click, Ctrl-Shift-Alt-C, pivot to 3D point. All my parts have now good pivot points. The next step is to rebuild your model by moving all the parts. My model is now complete. And the last Blender step is to use the hierarchy box on the top right to rename all your parts and remove unnecessary things, camera and lamp. So I am renaming all my parts: leg right, leg left, body and head. And you should also have an extra empty item. You can delete it, and I will delete camera and lamp. Here I am renaming all my parts. When I click on an item, it is highlighted on the scene, so I can see which part is which. I'm removing camera and lamp. And as a final step, I will select all my parts. I use the A shortcut, and I move my model in the center of the scene. My work in Blender is done. I can now export as FBX for Unity. To export as FBX, click on File, Export FBX. I export my FBX file on my desktop folder, and my work with Blender is done. I can now animate my model in Unity. I will import my FBX, and I will use it in Unity. I also save my Blender file if I want to do any modification in the future, but my work with Blender is done for now. I can close it. Inside my desktop folder, I have created a FBX folder. As you can see, Magicavoxel created 3 files, MTL, OBJ, and PNG. I have my saved Blender file and my FBX folder. I will copy the Magicavoxel PNG file and paste it next to my FBX file. We will be needing this PNG file in Unity to add the colors of our models. I am now making a new project in Unity, an empty 3D Unity project. I like to have well-organized Unity project, so I start by creating few basic folders: models, textures, materials, scripts, prefabs, and animations. I can now import my FBX model in my models folder. To do so, I click on Assets and Import New Assets. I find my FBX file and import it on Unity. I now have my model in Unity, but it is white. I need to add the texture. To do so, I use the Asset menu again, Import Assets, and I import the Magicavoxel PNG file in my Texture folder. I need to create a material from this PNG file to link it to my model. So in my Materials folder, I create a new material, name it Chicken, and on the Information panel, I click on the circle next to Albedo. It opens the texture selection. I choose my PNG file and my material is now ready. I select my chicken model. I click on the Material Information panel and I will set my new material as Palette. I click on Apply and my chicken model is now colored. The next step is to drag your model in Unity. I like to create a 3D plane so I can see my model on the ground. Then I grab my chicken model and drag it into the Unity scene. I am ready to start animating it. I am moving it a little bit to see it well. Okay, I'm turning it. Maybe yes, in the next. Okay, I will be moving it a little bit on the center of the scene. Okay, perfect. As you can see, my model contains all the Blender parts that we have created in Blender. I will use them to animate it. I select my model in the scene hierarchy and click on the Animation tab just below the Unity scene. I click on the Create button and create an anim file named Chicken Hero in my Animation folder. I can now start recording my animation by clicking on the red circle on the animation panel. Okay. I click on it. I want a simple waiting animation, so I move the timeline cursor to 1 second and I move my chicken body and head a little bit. To select my part, I double click on it. And here I move my body a little bit. I will move my head a little bit. Select my head and move it a little bit. Then I select all the 0 second dots and pass them at 2 seconds. So my animation step at 0 and 2 seconds are the same. My animation can loop. I hit play to test my animation. She is working fine. I stop recording my animation by clicking on the red ticker again. I can now test my animation in-game. I hit the Unity Player animation, and as you can see, my idle animation is working fine. My chicken is breathing. My first animation in Unity is done. I turn my ground color to better see my model, and I am ready to start my second Unity animation. I select my model, hit the animation tab, and click on create a new clip. I create a chicken walk anim file and start creating my walk animation in the Unity animation timeline. I use the same technique than for my idle animation. I copy the 0 second dots to the end of my animation, so my animation can loop. I test it by clicking on the start button on the animation panel. My walking animation is ready. I can stop recording. But if I hit play on Unity, it's my idle animation that is played. I need to tell Unity when to play my working animation. To do so, I'll click on my model Unity animator, and as you can see, my idle animation is arranged. It's the default animation of my model, and my working animation is gray. I will make transition between my idle animation and my walk animation. To do so, I right-click on my idle animation, click on the Make Transition, and drag the arrow to my walking animation. I do the same for my walking animation to my idle animation. I will now create a variable on the left panel of the animator. I create an integer variable, and name it walk with an uppercase W. By default, walk equals 0. I will click on my transition arrow between my two animations and add a condition by clicking on the little plus on the right panel. If walk equals 1, make transition between idle and walk. I make the same thing in the other direction. If walk equals 0, make transition between walk and idle. In the two cases, I unselect the As Exit Time box. Now I need to add a script to my model to make it move and trigger my walking animation by changing my walk variable from 0 to 1 when moving. To do so, I select my model and click on New Component. I search for Script and click on New Script. I name my new script Player Controller with P and C uppercase. I place my new script in the Scripts folder and double-click on it to edit it. Place it and I double-click. Here I have prepared a very simple script So I will just copy and paste it, and I will add a link to that simple script in the video description. What you have to see in that script is that I get my model animator as anim, and when my model is moving, I set the animator variable walk to 1. When it is not moving, I reset it to 0. We can now go back to Unity and test it. I'm waiting a little bit. I will hit play on Unity. And it's perfect. My chicken is moving with the walking animation, and when it stops, it returns to the breathing animation. So my little tutorial is over. I hope you liked it, and I've maybe learned a little. I hope you could understand despite my strong French accent. If you have any question, feel free to ask them in the comment section. I will always try to answer them. And to finish, here are some models I've animated using this exact same technique. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye!